American public transportation. Oh, that's gotta be the pinnacle of reliability, right? Well, if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell for you, preferably one that's not congested with traffic. First up, we've got timetables that are more like suggestions than actual schedules. You know, like that one time your bus was supposed to arrive at 9 a.m. sharp, but it rolls in fashionably late at 9:45 a.m, like it's making a grand entrance at a red carpet event. With very few exceptions in few locations, American transit is terrible. It is sporadic, it doesn't last all day, and it's unreliable. In the meantime, only 45% of Americans have any access to public transportation. What we would refer to as transportation deserts are the true issue in the United States, correct? These are basically locales where trying to use public transportation anywhere, whether to work, play, or pick up your kids, is just a complete and total misery. By the year 2029, the backlog is anticipated to reach $250 billion. Riders are ultimately responsible for covering the deficit. The funding for the epidemic will run out, and many places have made that prediction. The American government has long preferred private vehicles to public transportation. When we discuss funding for transit, we mean money. Yet the word investment is frequently used when discussing the same public funds for roads. We spend hundreds of billions more on infrastructure and paving new roads than we do on public transportation. For instance, between 2010 and 2020, commuter, heavy, and light rail on US railways increased by 945 miles. Around 100,000 miles of highways were added during the same time span. In terms of mobility, we frequently have no options. Local or regional transportation is frequently limited to driving. This difference significantly influenced by history. The US once had a public transportation system that was the envy of the entire globe. Our cities had excellent streetcar systems up to the 1920s. These trams frequently travelled down the middle of the road. At your convenience, you could board them. They were so frequent that advanced preparation was not necessary. American city dwellers made an average of more than 250 streetcar excursions annually at its height in the 1920s. Yet the electric streetcar industry was not all profitable. When operating costs increased due to inflation, businesses were unable to raise prices correspondingly. And as a result, the quality of the services rapidly declined. The city governments, state governments, and of course the federal government, which was not involved in any way during this time, basically turned a blind eye when the streetcar companies, which were privately owned, went to the government and other institutions and begged them to assist them. A third of transit businesses had already declared bankruptcy by the conclusion of World War I. Moreover, vehicles had become America's newest preoccupation. The car was reframed as an all-purpose transportation necessity rather than a specific mobility aid by those who wished to sell more automobiles. And when they did that, they really succeeded in persuading a lot of people that you need to get this everywhere and that you can't call a place contemporary or progressive until it has a car-friendly infrastructure. And what do you think of the changes brought to the cities? And cities stated to fact the change around vehicles as a result of the influx of money and assistance from legislation. Every time it was possible, they compelled private transit firms to remove the streetcar lines. To encourage faster car speeds, they built all of these one-way streets. They constructed parks, they constructed roads. And when others questioned if this was truly the best course of action, the response was that it was just a matter of supply and demand. A free market exists. We need to build the roads and streets for the people who are paying for them because drivers are voting with their gas pedals. In our country, there is a sort of lag between public investment in highway infrastructure and transit infrastructure. There was a delay of at least 40 to 50 years, and the federal government did not start sponsoring initiatives for public transport until the late 1960s. Political differences make the imbalance more obvious. The 2021 infrastructure bill's major source of dispute became the financial split between highways and public transportation. Republicans advocated for less funding for mass transit, while Democrats just requested 20%. Democrats ultimately reached a comprehensive in order to bill to pass the Senate. While you wait for the next delay, why not understand the probable reasons for why public transport is messed up? There are several possible reasons why public transportation in America can often be unreliable. First and the foremost reason would be insufficient funding. Public transportation is largely government subsidized in the US, but funding is often inadequate to keep systems fully maintained, expand routes lines, and provide frequent, reliable service. Many systems are underfunded and struggling financially. Secondly, the aging infrastructure. Much of the infrastructure for public transit was built decades ago and has not been sufficiently updated or modernized. Outdated equipment leads to breakdowns and delays. Next would be the prioritization of automobiles. Urban planning in the US has long favored the automobile, with public transit as an afterthought. Lack of dedicated bus lanes or rail lines makes services less efficient. Do you think decentralization of urbanization areas would be a reason? Unlike Europe and Asia, many American cities are very spread out and low density, making effective public transit challenging and expensive. Another reason would be the lack of priority and incentives. There are a few policies incentives in place to encourage public transit over personal vehicles. No sick approach like license plate restrictions, congestion, pricing, labour shortages, operator shortages lead to bus train cancellations. High turnover makes it hard to maintain experienced staff. Transit work is often difficult with few benefits. Do you think population shifts are a problem as well? Declining populations in some metro areas result in lower ridership, cuts in service, and reduced revenues. Little coordination between private transit like shuttles, rideshares, and public transit leads to duplication and inefficiency. Heat, cold, rain, and snow can severely disrupt above-ground trains and buses in many parts of the country. The unreliability of public transportation in many American cities elicits a range of negative reactions from disappointed riders. Frequent delays, cancellations, and inconsistent services have almost become expected, much to the frustration of commuters. When the bus or train fails to show up on time or not at all, it ruins plans and breeds aggravation. For many regular commuters, unreliability leads to endless venting and complaining. Social media amplifies the gripping, with angry riders lighting up transit agencies. Twitter and Facebook feeds when services go awry. Commuters share their public transit horror stories and virtually bash agencies for their apparent incompetence. Memes and viral videos poking fun at late buses or no-shows also abound. This frustration is understandable. No one likes waiting endlessly at a bus stop or train platform just to find out their ride isn't coming. Public castigation and dark humour seem to be outlets for riders to express their displeasure. However, the non-stop online negativity also tends to drown out any nuanced discussion about how to actually improve service. When buses and trains can't be counted on, the daily uncertainty takes a toll on commuters' mental health. It breeds high levels of stress and anxiety. Riders perpetually have to budget extra time for trips to account for possible delays. And if a train or bus simply never arrives, it can ruin entire days by making people late to work or appointment. Unreliable service also leads to decreased ridership over time. When public transit cannot get people where they need to go efficiently, more choose other options. Those who couldn't afford it in time turn rideshares like Uber or Lyft for greater consistency. Others simply revert to driving if that's feasible. This ridership drain then depletes revenues for transport agencies, exacerbating downward spirals of worsening service. While people will complain and vent their valid frustrations, many riders also understand the core issues with public transit are about lack of funding and resources. They recognise agencies are often doing the best they can with outdated equipment, aging infrastructure, and budget shortfalls. Constructive advocacy for improved transit funding tends to emerge from these riders. At the end of the day, people rely on public transportation out of necessity, not choice. When service is unreliable, their daily lives become disrupted in unavoidable ways. Yet there is no easy fixes given the challenges transit agencies face. Well folks, we've reached the end of our journey through the wild and wacky world of American public transportation. Wasn't that just a delightful experience? Now as you navigate the unpredictable waters of American transportation, remember, patience is a virtue. And hey, you can always use the extra time to catch up on your favourite YouTube channels, right? Like ours. Do like, Sky, and subscribe to our channel for more brood content.